Hello, BookTube. Who's up for some Thursday mail? Let's see what we can do for mail. We've got a bunch of stuff. Mail envelopes, pressed cardboard, and one lonely little box. So let's see what we can find here to add to the pile. Are you on duty, Bean? Yes? No? Oh, almost. Oh. All right, so what is this first one? Okay. All right. This is from the brainy folks at Harvard University Press. This is an April 2nd book. I imagine all of these are going to be April 2nd books. Every single date on these will be April 2nd. This is by Kate Kenny, and it's called Whistleblowing Toward a New Theory. And in case you need a little quick object lesson on a very good eye-catching cover for a book, there you go. This did not require original artwork. This did not require any kind of huge financial outlay, and it is not a blank sepia tone photo that's out of focus. Fine. Birds on a line, one going off on a balloon. Whistleblowing. Despite their substantial contribution to society, whistleblowers are considered martyrs more than heroes. When people expose serious wrongdoing in their organizations, they are often punished or ignored. Many end up isolated by colleagues, their professional careers destroyed. The financial industry, rife with scandal, is the focus of Kate Kenny's Whistleblowing, introducing whistleblowers from the United States, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and Ireland working at companies like Wachovia, Halifax Bank of Scotland, and Citywide Bank of America. Kenny suggests practices that would make it less perilous to hold the powerful to account and will leave us all better off. Okay, so early April. Of course, the reason why all of that is true is painfully evident, right? Because it's the people who would get whistleblown on who write the rules. But I've never read a book. I've read books on individual whistleblowers, and I'm waiting. I read The Man Who Betrayed America's Secrets, or How America Lost Its Secrets, a book from a couple of years ago about Edward Snowden, one of the most famous whistleblowers of modern times. And it was rabble-rousing. It was an invigorating read, but it left me wanting to read a bigger, more comprehensive, and maybe more even-keeled history of the whole Snowden case. I would love that. I would also love to read a book by him, the long-rumored massive book of his own that he's writing. One way or another. The subject's still interesting. In fact, let's check. Is he going to be in here? This is a finished copy, so there will be an index. And if this is the financial industry, he might not be. No. Okay, so see, he's not in here at all. All right. I'm still waiting for those books, but this one will do fine. In the meantime, let's see what this next one is. All right, this is Yale University Press. We're going to do a little tour of the Ivy League here. This is April 9th, so I get a week's reprieve. This is by Marek Cohn, and it is 4 words for friend. Why using more than one language matters now more than ever. Good luck selling that to monoglot Americans. They don't even know their own language, much less anybody else's. With English viewed as a global language, along with the rapid gains in translation technology, it's easy to assume that the need to use more than one language will diminish. I actually believe that. We'll see if the author is obviously going to make the opposite case. Marek Cohn argues that plural language use is more important than ever. The Guardian has called him one of the best science writers we have, and in this book he brings together perspectives from psychology, evolutionary thought, politics, literature, and everyday experience. He explores how many people acquire languages, how they lose them, and how they can regain them, how different languages may affect people's perceptions, their sense of self, and their relation with each other. That's actually the argument to make here. Not that it's going to be necessary. I'm sure by now you've all seen those online commercials. A little handheld device that is a universal translator if it's programmed with a language. The people in the commercial walk up to people in Japan on the street and speak English into the device, which is the size of a pencil. And it speaks Japanese to other people. And the other people are astonished, and I was astonished. It didn't seem real. But it is real. And that sort of thing is going to get far more common than it is now. I'd be willing to bet that the technology, the programs that power such a device are easily built into an app. I'd be willing to bet you can get an app now that will change your phone into a universal translator. Just load in what you want. You're going to Germany, load in German and English, and just have the algorithm do the translating on the spot, in real time. I think that will become common. Very, very common. So I think it can't help but be. And that will mean not only there won't be a utility for anybody to know other languages, but there won't be a utility for anybody to know English either. It'll just be the Tower of Babel. But learning, the real argument is that learning another language, or more than one other language, really does open up the world to you. It really does change the way you think in very, very important ways. It stops you from being as mentally provincial as you would otherwise be. Especially if you can get yourself into the track of actually thinking in a language that's not your own. That is a fascinating experience. I highly recommend it. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. I often want to carp that all of you who are doing all of your audiobook listening could be learning a language in that time instead. But you'll get a lot of loving satisfaction out of your audiobook listening time, so I won't carp. One way or another, speaking as someone who learned a language that is not human long before he learned any human language and has been learning other languages ever since, I highly attest to the mind-broadening factor of learning other languages. I really do attest to it. All right, so let's move. Oh, this next one is heavy. Nice big finished copy. What is this next one? Oh, all right. This will be the 2nd of April. Yep. This is also by Yale. This is a finished copy of a book that I, of course, did not wait to read. Instead, I gobbled it down right away. This is by Andrew Pettigrew and Arthur de Wedderun, and it is The Bookshop of the World. It's making and trading books in the Dutch Golden Age, and that is an imprint there on the cover. Some of you there, I think 75 of you who are new here. Welcome to welcome in every video, I should say. Welcome to anybody who's new. It's basically what you see is what you get there. I will talk about books all the live long day. Let's see here. Let's read this again, just in case. The Dutch Golden Age is best known as the age of Rembrandt and Vermeer, whose paintings captured the public imagination and came to present the marvel that was the Dutch Republic. Yet there is another largely overlooked marvel in the Dutch world of the 17th century: books. In The Bookshop of the World, the authors show how the Dutch came to be leading producers of books as well as owners of more books per capita than any people in Europe. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. My main worry going in, it's a great, great subject, and it has been extensively written about. My main worry going in was that it would be dry, and it's not. So if you're interested in the history of the book trade, in the history of the book world, or in, I might add, in American reading, the much neglected history of the Dutch Republic, a miracle in its own right. If you're interested in any of that, then you should read this book. Absolutely, you should read this book. It's just an amazing contribution to the sprawling literature of the history of the book. But anyway, let's move on. That's great. It's great to have a copy of that. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, okay. This is lovely. All right, this next one is in late April. It's from Amazon Crossing, the literature in translation branch of Amazon's massive publishing army. And we've seen it before on this channel. This is Sofia Segovia, translated by Simon Bruni, and this is The Murmur of Bees. And I wasn't expecting the finished copy. I mean, design-wise, it looks just like the advanced copy, but the feel of it is the heft of it is nice, very nice. And this author, I guess, is acclaimed in Mexico. I put out feelers to find out what the nature of his reception is in Mexico, whether or not he's popular, whether or not he's, a big deal literarily speaking, and I didn't get much of a response. Those of you who are in Mexico, do you know this author? Is she a big deal? But anyway, let's see here. This is Mexican author Sofia Segovia has dazzled Spanish language readers around the world with her lyrical novels of magical realism, and has been widely hailed as the next Isabella Allende. And this book, I guess, is beloved. The Murmur of Bees is beloved. And it will be published in English for the first time. Set against the backdrop of the Mexican Revolution and the Spanish influenza of 1918, The Murmur of Bees is the story of a remarkable young boy, physically disfigured but psychically gifted, and his profound effects on a close-knit farming family who adopts him in a village in northeast Mexico. And the author was inspired to write the novel by stories of her grandfather stories her grandfather told her about his life. I'm curious to know. I haven't done my due diligence on this book because I was sort of waiting for the finished copy, and now that I have it, I will. I haven't looked to see if this is the only Sofia Segovia book that has been translated to English. There's the bean. She is tired of her patrolling of the garbage on the floor, and it popped up under the bed. Hi, Bean. How you doing, baby? I'll just lean forward so you can all see her. You don't care what I'm saying. I haven't checked to see whether this author has any other books in translation, or whether or not this is maybe her English language debut. I'd find that hard to believe if she's internationally acclaimed, but you never know. This is a internationally timid country. America is an internationally timid country. Americans generally aren't interested in the rest of the world. So let's see what this next one is. Also heavy, also probably a finished copy. Yes, okay, all right. This is also from Amazon. This is from Thomas and Mercer, the thriller and mystery arm of Amazon. Amazon publishes a huge amount of books, and they have upped their game a lot in the last 10 years. I imagine as a result of hiring the right people. That's the only thing I can think of. I haven't actually dug into that either to see who is it who's on the editorial and acquisition board of any of these Amazon imprints. But the books have gotten a lot better. It's partly that, probably, and partly also that probably the submissions have just gone through the roof. But this is, we've seen it already. This is by Robert Dugoni, and this is The Eighth Sister, international crime fiction. That if I remember correctly, I haven't read it yet, but if I remember correctly, it had a really good sounding description. One of the best crime writers in the business, according to the Associated Press. Author photo is the thumbnail. I don't know why that would be when you've got all the paper in the world to print it on, but he seems fairly young. This is a standalone thriller of espionage, spy games, treachery, and legal battles that spans the globe from Seattle to Russia. The best-selling author's legion of fans may recall former CIA officer Charles Jenkins, a character from his David Sloan series, whom the eponymous lawyer calls on for investigative assistance in the book called Wrongful Death. In The Eighth Sister, Jenkins is front and center, and a man at the crossroads. Now in his early 60s, he and his family are living on a remote island off the coast of Washington, and he has a new baby on the way and a security consulting business on the brink of bankruptcy. Unexpectedly, his former boss from the agency shows up at his house with a risky proposition: travel undercover to Moscow and locate a Russian agent believed to be killing members of a clandestine U.S. spy cell known as the Seven Sisters. Huh. Okay. Odd to find someone outside of Hollywood having the sheer egotism to be an expectant father in his early 60s. But I guess male vanity happens everywhere, not just in Hollywood. But I have not got to this, and I want to. I want to do both of these Amazon things. In fact, they're both coming up, and I've got the finished copies of them, so I'll probably put both of these on the list for this weekend. All right, this next one is, now we can go on to the cardboard. This next one is Whopper Thin, and it is light as a feather. So it is either a catalog or it is a slim volume of poetry. Oh, no, it's neither one. Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. This is by Georges Simenon. This is an Inspector Maigret novel. This is Maigret and the Good People of Montparnasse. This is the latest in Penguin is republishing. They are not republishing, actually. They're retranslating all of Simenon. A vast undertaking. This guy never stopped writing. And he wrote good, clean prose at breakneck speed. So there's a huge amount of stuff, and the most famous of which are the Maigret mysteries, and they are wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Mid-century Paris just comes alive in these books, and I get them regularly. Penguin still isn't done with them. There's a whole shelf of them by now, all in these uniform white spines. Fantastic, wonderful. All right, let's forge on here. Another finished copy. Okay, this is a debut novel by Molly Dektar. Let's see, it comes out, I'm sure it comes out on April 2nd. No, April 9th. Okay, it comes out on April 9th. The pub sheet was issued originally, and on the pub sheet it's called the Ashe Family, but that apparently has changed. Its title is now Review Copy Not for Resale. Kind of think the Ashe Family says a lot more about the book. But let's see here. This is her debut. Good for her. Simon & Schuster debut. Fantastic. Although I can't help it, but it's nagging at my memory. I'll have to look up specifics, but I can't help but think that I've seen the title "Review Copy Not for Resale" before. But I assume that it's the title of the book because it's by far the most prominent thing on the cover, and it's not the author's name. 19-year-old Barry knows she is supposed to start college in Virginia, but something inside of her keeps her from getting on a plane from her home in North Carolina. Instead, she heads to a bus station with no money and no plan, where she meets a mysterious man named Bay. Something about him draws Barry in, captivating her, and the more he tells her about his chosen family, the Ashe family, the more she wants to be part of his world there. He ferries her from the civilized world to the Ashe family farm, an intentional community living off the land, bound together by high ideals and through relationships she can't untangle. Okay, I can untangle them even from this distance. I'm not even in the book. Promising utopia, the Ashe family and their leader, Dice, take Barry in. Idyllic at first, Barry spends her... Okay, she's not idyllic at first. Her experience is. She spends her time learning the ways of nature, of animals, and of life outside of society. Be willing to bet that before the novel is over, she'll also be learning the ways of involuntary sex on command. but let's let the thing have its head here. She renounces her old life and settles into a new one. She makes friends, acquires a new name, Harmony, and feels at home for the first time in her life. She learns how to herd sheep, to milk and make butter, and to take care of the earth and herself. As the months go by, she realizes that pulling her weight in farm work does not equate to loyalty in the eyes of Dice and the Ashe family. She longs to prove her devotion, but struggles to win over more dedicated members of the family, especially Bay, the only one keeping her tethered to the family. Wow, so this is a utopian/cult novel. And from the description, I get the strong impression that the Ashe family would have been a better title for this book than Review Copy Not for Resale. But one way or another, I'm, as you know, a big fan of debut novels, so I will gobble this thing up. In fact, it's a finished copy, and it's due in early April, so I can get to all of these. I can do all of these. But anyway, let's forge on. We still have plenty to do here. And they'll probably all be finished copies, probably all for April. Okay, yes. Do we have a pub sheet on this? Let's see. Yeah, this is April. April 9th. Okay, I think we've seen this before as well. This is A Lost History of Dreams by Chris Waldhair. Covered in blurbs. The pub sheet for the finished copy is covered in blurbs. Oh yeah, right. This is the one where the pub sheet starts off with all love stories are ghost stories in disguise. To which the only possible sane response is, no, they're not. I know this is the Trump era, but just being able to declare something doesn't make it true. Let's see here. In 1850 London, Robert Heisted longs for the company of his beloved wife, who hasn't been the same since an unfortunate event on their wedding night. Rather, he's become estranged from his affluent family in Kent and forsaken his career as a promising scholar of Ovid, taking with zeal to the uncommon occupation of daguerreotyping corpses. Why? Well, I figured I'm a character in a novel. I might as well do something like that. Robert surrounds himself with the recently bereaved, capturing their loved ones in eerie keepsakes. As a daguerreotyper of corpses. Yes. So he's a stalled scholar of Ovid who doesn't go into, I don't know, teaching classics at a boys' school. Okay. I'm surprised he doesn't daguerreotype corpses in a balloon. Why doesn't he do that? You people wonder why I mock the made-up stories. Anyway, despite Robert's carefully cultivated existence in the shadows, an unanticipated missive, that's letter, to you hoi polloi, from his brother disrupts his death vigil with a request. Their distant relation, the acclaimed Byron-esque poet Hugh de Bon, has died, for those of you in the cheap seats. His final wish was to be buried next to his wife and muse Ada on the moors of Shropshire inside Ada's Folly, a stained glass chapel erected to honor her. erected by aliens to honor her. To further complicate matters, because they certainly need complicating, the bereaving Ovid scholar, whose wife has never been quite the same, who's taken a job as a daguerreotyper of dead bodies, has received a letter from a long-lost cousin about an even further long-lost cousin who's a famous Byron-esque poet who's died and has a specific weirdo request to be buried in something called a folly in the middle of Shropshire. So we could use a little complicating, because those things happen all the time. To further complicate matters, Hughes' will requires that a daguerreotype be made of his final resting place with Ada's only niece, Isabel Lowell, in the tableau. But Isabel Lowell is actually a traveling contortionist for a circus. And when our corpse daguerreotyping hero tracks her down, it turns out she's multiple people, all under a trench coat. Hesitant to leave his wife alone in London, Robert reluctantly agrees to the enterprise, because he would, of course. You would. You have an out-of-your-mind wife that you adore and dote on. Get a mysterious request from a stranger you've never met, provenance of which you cannot verify. Of course you're going to go herring out of London and leave her alone. Unaware of the resistance he'll encounter. Embittered by loss and by Hughes' prying admirers, Isabel has no desire to fulfill the ill-fated poet's stipulations. Maybe that's why she ran away to the circus, and is actually multiple little people, all standing on each other's shoulders underneath a trench coat, trying to pass as one big person. Yet in time, Isabel concedes to open Ada's folly, but in exchange for a peculiar favor. She has a favor to ask about the favor asked about the guy who's asking a favor about a guy who asked a favor. Just in case you're keeping track there. For 5 nights, Robert must record the woeful story of Ada and Hughes' romance as Isabel tells it. Forced to commune with the past, Robert becomes transfixed by the allure of the stained-glass chapel and Ada de Bonn, unable to extricate himself from Hughes' mirrored misfortunes. Okay. All right, well, boy, oh boy, this is boring by-the-numbers contemporary fiction. Okay, all right. Okay, even though it is still freezing cold outside, that novel managed to be very overheated. We shall see. Maybe the novel itself is a little more controlled than the pub sheet. I can hope so. But let's just move on. Let's move on to the next one. A good solid work of history would certainly clean the taste of the Iowa Writers' Workshop out of our mouths. Let's see what we have next here. Oh no, it's more fiction. But at least this is historical fiction, period fiction. Boy, I didn't realize. Wow, I didn't realize when I got the advance copy how pretty the cover is. Wow. Okay. This is by H.S. Cross, and this is Grievous. This is the author's sequel to Wilberforce. This is apparently going to be a long sequence of novels centering around a boys' school, a British boys' school. St. Stephen's Academy in Yorkshire in 1931. A society unto itself, populated by boys reveling in life's first big mistakes and men still learning how to live with the consequences of their own. 14-year-old Gray Riding, bookish and yearning for approval, should start a booktube channel, has his life altered by the arrival at the academy of Cordelia Loyt, a vivacious goddaughter of his housemaster John Greaves, nicknamed Grievous. Greaves, too, is at a crossroads, forced to grapple with history, both collective and personal, as he manages difficult students, a precocious goddaughter, and the infinitely more difficult task of rescuing Cordelia's mother, the woman he secretly loves, from poor health and worse decisions. And this is, Wilberforce was frothing, would be one word. It was a very exuberant period piece, a very exuberant pastiche. I imagine this is going to be more of the same. I confess, once again, I have not got to it. I should get to all of these. I have been doing an enormous amount of advanced reading. Just haven't got to the ones this whole mail haul is making me look bad. But this comes out on April 9th. So a lot of this is just going to become just a default TBR. That's often the way of things, but this time especially. But let's just forge on here. We have a few more packages to go, and then we'll be done. This is yet another finished copy. This is also April. Is this April? Oh no, this is out already. Oh goodness. Or no, well, is this out already? Well, if not, if it wasn't last Tuesday, it's next Tuesday. It's right. It's right now. It's right. It's right. It's coming out right now. A series that I like. Okay, I wish I got it a little sooner. This is Ian McDonald. This is Luna, Moon Rising. Yet more science fiction. I don't know what's going on here. That's rather nice. I'm not complaining, but still, it's basically techno space opera. It centers on Earth's moon. And I found it very enjoyable reading. Good, solid science fiction. The type of thing. The first one was Luna New Moon, and the second one was Luna Wolf Moon. And now you've got Moon Rising. And these three books are a perfect example of the kind of science fiction that would have been issued in paperback, in a mass market $3 paperback, would have been on the metal spinner rack at your drugstore or your bookstore. It would not have been a hardcover book deal. I mean, good for the author, but bad for the reader. What reader is going to sink $30 into a new hardcover of what is essentially, it's ordinary science fiction? I don't mean that as a criticism, but it's just another example of the many ways that the American publishing industry is shooting itself in the foot. It's declining. And it's declining in part because fewer and fewer people read every year, but it's also declining because this is not sustainable. What? Anyway, I wonder if Luna New Moon, the first book in this series, is a $10 mass market paperback. Apparently, I was at the Barnes & Noble just a couple of weeks ago, and apparently mass market paperbacks are now $10. I don't know why. It's another example. I could go on this tirade for a long time. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. But one way or another, the first book in the series is now a $10 paperback, and the second book is a $15 paperback. They won't be the same size, for those of you who have a little OCD on that matter. But your library will probably have the first one in hardcover. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about this. This is Publishers Weekly says the political intrigue never feels too abstract or removed from 21st century Earth. Readers will appreciate the care MacDonald takes with both world building and characterization. Fans of the prior books will find this wrap-up rewarding. Okay, so this is apparently going to be the end. This is going to be a lunar trilogy. Witnessing the Dragon's final battle for absolute sovereignty in Ian MacDonald's heart-stopping finale to the Luna trilogy, 100 years in the future, a war wages between the 5 dragons, 5 families who control the moon's leading industrial companies. Each clan does everything in their power to claw their way to the top of the food chain. Marriages of convenience, corporate espionage, kidnapping, and mass assassinations. And it looks like the Luna series has gotten lots of praise. I can understand that. I shouldn't be. I'm not meaning to poo-poo this series. I like it. But it strikes me as something that would have taken a very different form before the American publishing industry started getting taken over by German business conglomerates and being told to turn business world kinds of profits on a quarterly basis. That one way or another, it's lovely restrained cover artwork. I've liked the first 2. I didn't know this was coming out, so it'll be a joy to wrap it up. So let's move on. We're zeroing in on the box, and then we'll be done. Let's see here. Oh, this is another finished copy. Have I got any advanced copies? Look at that. No, I haven't. This has entirely been finished copies. This whole thing. All right, so this is April as well. These are all from April. Good Lord. This is by Alice Outwater, and it's called Wild at Heart, America's Turbulent Relationship with Nature, from Exploitation to Redemption. Wild at Heart, for the outdoorsy type. Is a beautifully written and ultimately hopeful history of our relationship with nature and the wilderness. That ultimately hopeful business. I don't, unless the current Republican Party is permanently voted out of office. There's no ultimately hopeful. The current Republican Party is taking the lead from the current Republican president wanting to open up drilling and fracking in America's national parks. So that gets any traction at all. And that idea will stick around. So the only way it will go away is if the people with it go away. They just have to be eradicated from the body politic, and that's not going to happen, I don't think. So, but anyway, let's give the pub sheet the benefit of the doubt. Since we first stepped foot on U.S. soil more than 300 years ago, we've always had a complex relationship with nature. For example, the Puritans saw nature as a frightening wilderness, full of uncooked meat. Okay, some of our Puritan writers also found it beautiful, but that's okay. With the Industrial Revolution, oh, no, the pub sheet, oh, no. Industrial Revolution is a specific thing. It's a specific thing, so you capitalize it. You don't not capitalize it. Same thing with the internet. The internet is a specific thing. It gets a capital letter. Nature was despoiled and simultaneously celebrated as a source of the sublime. With little forethought and great speed, Americans killed the last passenger pigeon, wiped out the old-growth forests, and dumped so much oil in the rivers that they burst into flame. Now we have the ability to destroy living things. Oh, God, what happened? There we go. Now we have the ability to destroy living things, manage waterways, restructure the land we live on, and pollute the air we breathe. But our relationship with the natural world matters even though it often seems like the environment is doomed and the world is quickly changing. And this book is perfectly timed for Earth Day, which is going to get mocked on Twitter by the President of the United States. Earth Day is going to get mocked by him on Twitter. But, okay, so what does it give any hope of... Okay, it makes clear how far we've come in protecting the environment and what we've lost if we roll back these protections. Okay, all right. And the author grew up on Lake Champlain in Vermont and studied engineering at the University of Vermont and at MIT. And she lives on a farm in Vermont. oh no, since she has lived on a farm in Vermont since 1991 in Vermont, and then in Hawaii, and finally in Colorado. So she's currently farming in Colorado. Okay, all right, so wild at heart. So part inspirational and also part policy. The current U.S. presidential administration is rolling back environmental protections at a breakneck speed. It's like the current crop of American Republicans hate nature. It's like they hate it. So, we'll have to hope that pendulum swings in the other direction. I don't believe it myself, but it could happen. But anyway, we've now got all the way to the box, and then we'll be done. And if the rest of this is any indication, this box is going to be a finished copy. This is going to be an entirely finished copy mail haul. Unbelievable. Yes? Okay. All right. Yes, this is an April book. We saw it, I think, already. This is by Russell Muirhead and Nancy Rosenblum. And it is A Lot of People Are Saying, The New Conspiracism and the Assault on Democracy. A lot of people are saying, referring, of course, to President Trump. Donald Trump has his whole life been saying, dodging responsibility for any of the vile things that were about to come out of his own mouth by saying, well, a lot of people are saying, well, a lot of people are saying, well, a lot of people are saying. There's never been any documentation, and now he has a job where if a lot of people were telling him something, it would be documented, and it still isn't, because it's always been a figment of his imagination. When he inflicted the longest government shutdown in American history on working families at Christmas time, he said over and over again in press availabilities in the Oval Office that a lot of people had been calling and urging him and telling him to keep going. Even though their families were starving, even though they couldn't pay their tuition, even though they couldn't pay for their insulin, keep going, Mr. Trump. We believe in you. This is important. And there isn't any way that he could get that interaction from a lot of people without it being recorded, because he's president of the United States, and it never happened. It didn't happen. And as mad as I am that he would just tell that lie over and over again, that he would just parade his delusions in front of the world, I'm even madder at the U.S. press that never called him on it. No one in any of those availabilities ever said, could you show us proof of that? You say that lots and lots of people, not just a dozen, but lots and lots of people, working people in America, are urging you to keep this shutdown going. Could you provide proof of that? No one ever said that. As far as I know, no one ever said that. Because they value being in the room too much. Anyway, let's see here. Conspiracy theories are as old as politics. But conspiracists today have introduced something new. Conspiracy without theory. Remember this? Remember this one? And the new conspiracism has moved from the fringes to the heart of government with the election of Donald Trump. In this book, the authors show how the new conspiracism differs from classic conspiracy theory, why so few officials speak truth to conspiracy, and what needs to be done to resist it. Okay, well, all right. Classic conspiracy theory insists that things are not what they seem and gathers evidence, especially facts ominously withheld by official sources, but to tease out secret machinations. The new conspiracism is different. There is no demand for evidence, no dots revealed to form a pattern, no close examination of shadowy plotters. Dispensing with the burdens of explanation, the new conspiracism imposes its own reality through repetition, exemplified by the catchphrase "a lot of people are saying" and bare assertion, with terms like rigged or witch hunt. The new conspiracism targets democratic foundations, political parties, and knowledge-producing institutions. It makes it more difficult to argue, persuade, negotiate, compromise, or even disagree. Ultimately, it delegitimates, should be delegitimizes, democracy. Yeah, yes it does. Yes it does. A lot of people in America have always had trouble. There's always been a broiling undercurrent of rabid irrationality in the American experiment. And since 2016, that undercurrent has been told, you're the mainstream. And if someone says, QAnon, if someone says, a lot of people are saying, if someone says, I just know that it's true, I don't need to prove it, they cannot be talked with. They cannot be reasoned with. They have decided, as this pub sheet says, they have decided to substitute a reality they want to believe in for the reality that it can be amply proven. Hence the gigantic explosion of people who believe the earth is flat. Not as a gag, not as a gimmick, not as a conversation starter, but actually do believe it. This kind of thing, conspiracism, the new conspiracism, gives people the freedom to live inside their own tailor-made realities. And in human history, we have always had a term for such people. They're psychotics. And they have either been killed, expelled from the community, or incarcerated forever. There's no curing them. You can't change them. They've always been dealt with as an aberration. Now, all of a sudden, they're part of walking around life, and I don't know the solution to it. Actually, I do know the solution to it, but nobody's going to like the solution. There's only one solution. It is the solutions that I said. Society has always treated these people as things, as contagions, not worthy of rights, not in most cases not worthy of life, certainly not worthy of consideration in the public square, and that is the only way to deal with this rise, the rise of this barking mad, fact-free insanity that happens to have its foremost exponent in the Oval Office. The only way to deal with it is to pen it, medicate it, kill it, expel it. There's no way to make it part of the communal conversation. There's no way to do that. That cannot be done. Every society in the world has known that. But anyway, it's April, and I'm not going to deal with it just yet. I'm already reading 2 Trump books right now, so I'm going to deal with this a little bit later. So that is our books, entirely finished copies, entirely for April. So a wagging finger in the face of Steve. So a lot of people are saying about Trump delusion syndrome, just communicated into the society at large. Then Wild at Heart, the American relationship with Wild World. Luna, Moon Rising, the 3rd and final book in the Luna trilogy. A very good trilogy. Grievous. Don't know if this is a trilogy. I think this is an open-ended thing, a multi-booked thing. You can see the school emblem there. The second book in a series about a boys' school in the early 20th century. Then Lost History of Dreams, about a balloon riding corpse daguerreotyping lapsed Ovid scholar. then Review Copy Not for Resale, which is a novel about the Ashe family. Weird cult type back to roots thing. Then The Eighth Sister, espionage thriller. Murmur of Bees, by apparently a well-regarded Mexican author. Bookshop of the World, about the Dutch book trade in the Dutch Golden Age. 4 Words for Friend, by Marek Cohn, about the importance of multilingualism. Whistleblowing, a new theory about whistleblowers. And last but not least, the new Maigret. The new Maigret paper, the only paperback in the pile here. Also brand new, though. So that is quite the mail. that doubles. It adds a huge chunk to my April shelf. Yeah. But I'm not complaining, because a lot of this looked really interesting. In fact, I'm going to dig into a lot of it right now. But I will be back. I will be back with more stuff to talk to you about. You haven't seen last of me. Thank you, BookTube.